Welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel, brought to you by Red Heart Yarns. In this video, I will show you how to make the Lacy Isosceles Shawl. This is a crochet project that is made using one skein of yarn. That's right, you can believe me. This uses one skein of the Red Heart Super Saver Ombre yarn. This is a new yarn on the market, and you can see here it gradually changes from a lighter shade to a darker shade back to a lighter shade of the same color. So it's very tonal, and it gradually changes those colors. There are no abrupt stop and starts of different colors like various other cake yarns on the market. You can see here, just simply by the sample shawl, it began with a really dark purple, it gradually went to a lighter shade of purple, and then as the crocheter continued on, it gradually went back to a darker shade of purple. Now obviously, depending on where you start in your skein of yarn, you could begin with a lighter shade, go to a darker shade, go back to a lighter shade. It all depends on what the ball of yarn you're using graduates to. But you can see here, this beautiful yarn, it is simply stunning. This is the deep sea coral color. There are a variety of colors available in the Super Saver Ombre yarns. Go ahead and select your favorite. You only need one ball, and you can complete this really great shawl. This is a free pattern available on redheart.com. You will find a link to all the information you need to complete this project right down there in the video description box below. While you're down there, smash that like button, as my kids say, to let people know you enjoyed this video. Why don't I go ahead and show you what you will need to complete this beautiful shawl. For this shawl pattern, you will need the Lacy Isosceles Crochet Shawl pattern. This is a free pattern over on redheart.com. You will also need one ball of Super Saver Ombre yarn. Along with the yarn, you will need a 6mm crochet hook, which is a US size J or 10. You will need some stitch markers. I'm going to have you collect 3 removable stitch markers. Then you will also need a bent tip steel tapestry needle to weave in your ends. Please go ahead and download the pattern, collect your materials, join me back here for the first part of the Lacy Isosceles Shawl. The Lacy Isosceles Shawl is a triangular shawl, but we will not start at the top or at the bottom of the shawl. We will actually start at the side, at the wingspan. So if you take a look down here, you can see we will actually begin at this wingspan portion, and then we will increase out along this edge of our work. And as we do that, we will then create extra stitches and extra width through the entire shawl until we get to the centermost point of the shawl, which would be right here. And once we reach the width we want at that point, we will then decrease down. In this video, I will show you how to begin the shawl and how to increase up to the center point. You will find the instructions for part 2, the decrease and the finishing off of the shawl, in the next video. You can find a direct link to that by clicking that I button right there, or once again, looking in the description box right down there below. Let's go ahead and look at the pattern for this particular shawl. One of the great things that Red Heart has done for this particular shawl pattern is they've not only provided you with the written instructions, but they had their tech editor do some charts. So those of you who are like me and absolutely love charts, this is perfect, because sometimes you can get absolutely lost in the words. And vice versa, sometimes you can go along with the words because you really enjoy the words, but maybe you're just a little bit confused where a stitch might be. You can always refer to the chart to see precisely where a particular stitch is supposed to be. We are going to work this chart in this video today. This is the increase section, and I've actually taken this chart and I have expanded it larger so that way we can look at it a little bit easier right here on the video. So I've made the chart a lot larger, obviously, and we will begin right down here where it says number 1. As you're reading charts, you will notice that the number of the row you're on coincides with the direction you will read the chart. Meaning the number 1 is right here, so we will begin reading the chart right on this side and go towards the left. For row 2, we will start on the left and read towards the right. For row 3, we start on the right and read towards the left. And it goes that way throughout the entire chart. You will also notice that every other row is a different color to help you distinguish which actual symbols go for each particular row. As we work through this chart, yes, I am going to work with the chart in the video, but don't worry, you can always use the words to coincide with what I'm teaching you in the video. But as I work through the chart, I will try and explain to you where it is you're actually working the increases and how the repeat will begin to work in order for you to increase to the center portion of the shawl. Now that we have taken a look at the pattern and taken a look at the chart, why don't we go ahead and jump in? Grab your hook, your ombre yarn, and let's get started. We will begin by putting a slip knot directly onto our hook. And to do a slip knot, you place the tail of the yarn in the palm of your hand. Take your working yarn, wrap it around your forefinger and middle finger. When you come back up, cross over. After you cross over, turn your hand and go underneath the front loop and grab the back loop and off of your fingers. You've now created a big loose circle. If you pull on the legs, it tightens the circle and you want to place that directly onto your hook. Once you've placed that onto your hook, you're ready to get started. This is a quick reminder. You will never count the loop on your hook as a stitch. So as we say, we're going to chain five chains here in a second. We will not count the loop on our hook. To do a chain, you take your hook, wrap it around your yarn like so, and then pull that yarn directly through the loop on your hook. Do not tighten your loop after this point. It should stay the same size as your hook. So that's one chain. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Once we do those 5 chains, we will then do 2 treble crochets in the very first chain we created. So we will skip 4 chains. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the next one, we will do 2 treble crochets. For a treble crochet, you yarn over your hook twice, go into the stitch, yarn over your hook once, pull up a loop. So you have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. That's 1. We have to do 1 more, so we'll yarn over our hook twice, go into that same stitch, yarn over our hook, pull up a loop. You have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over your hook, draw through 2, yarn over your hook, draw through 2, yarn over your hook, draw through 2. You now have something that resembles this. This initial skipped 4 chains right here will count as a stitch. And this is a treble and this is a treble. Let's bring in our chart real quick to have you see exactly how this corresponds with this. You can see right down here on row 1, if we count those little ovals, which are chains, we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chains. So those were our initial 5 chains. These symbols right there are treble crochets, and I know that I'm going to yarn over my hook twice for my treble crochet because I have 2 slash marks or 2 hash marks on the large T. That's sort of a clue that you will yarn over your hook twice. So if it had 4 slash marks, you would yarn over your hook 4 times. Make sense? Don't worry, there is also a key attached to the pattern, so if you have any trouble remembering what any of these symbols are, always refer back to the key. You can see right here, the treble is the big T with the 2 hash marks. That's a treble crochet. I'll move that out of the way. Now that we've completed this, we would move on then to row 2. And we can go ahead and count 1, 2, 3, 4. So we will chain 4. We will put 1 treble crochet into that first treble. we will put 1 treble crochet into the second treble, and then we will put 2 treble crochets into that chain right there. So that was the last chain we created. I'm pointing that out now because this is where I want you to bring in your stitch marker. Let's go ahead and let's mark that 4th chain right now. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, that 4th chain. I want to mark it because that lets me know that is the edge of my shawl. That is where I will work into my stitch. And that's important because as we begin to continue and look at the rest of the pattern, you will notice that on every red row, it begins by working into one of the stitches of the previous turning row. So we want to know where that stitch is. That'll be important for us, okay? So we want to go ahead and do that. It will help us keep our edges straight. We will do the same thing over here along this edge just to make sure we're in the correct place. Okay, so now that I've marked my edge stitch, I can go ahead and begin row 2. So let's set that out of the way. And row 2 has a start with a chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll notice that I haven't turned yet. You can turn and chain 4, or you can chain 4 and turn. It's totally up to you. The pattern does have you turn and then do the chain 4, but it really doesn't matter. So either way works. Now that I've chained 4, it lets me know that that is automatically considered my first treble crochet. Okay, so that is a treble crochet right there. Let's go ahead and let's just mark that 4th chain we created right now so that we know where the edge of our work is. Okay, so we will just keep that marked right there. You can use different color markers that you know which edge is which if you choose to. I only had these purple markers here today, but that's one way you could do. You could say maybe this edge is pink and this edge is purple, and then you would always know which side of the work you're on, whether you're on a red row or a black row. Does that make sense? Okay, so here we are. We've done our 4 chains. We will do a treble crochet into this same stitch. So I've yarned over twice, go into the stitch, yarn over once, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. I will then put a treble crochet in this next stitch. I'm just going directly into the stitch and through both loops. I am not going through just the back loop or just the front loop. I'm going through both loops. So there's 1 treble crochet. Now I'm supposed to put 2 treble crochets into that chain that I have marked right there. So I can go ahead, I can remove my marker because I know where that chain is, and I will place 2 treble crochets right here. So there's 1, and then I'll yarn over twice and complete my second one. Now that I've done several treble crochets, I'm not going to go super slow on them from here on out. So if you want more instruction on treble crochets, please go ahead, check that link right over there, and you will find a direct link to all of the beginner crochet videos right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. We've completed row 2 and it's time to go to row 3. So let's do it just like it's written in the pattern. So the pattern says to go ahead and turn your work at this point. And then you will begin row 3, which has you start with a chain 4. So the chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, this counts as a double crochet and a chain 1, and then we will put a double crochet into this same stitch. All right, so I'm going to point this out. Here we go. We have a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. This entire stitch right here is called a beginner V-stitch, and that is important, especially if you're going back to the written instructions. It's chain 4, so it's chain 3 counts as a double, chain 1 is our center chain 1, and then a double crochet all into that same space, and that is a V-stitch. That's our beginning V-stitch. That's the way it's written in the instructions. So once you've done your beginning V-stitch, you will then chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. You will do a single crochet into the singular treble crochet that we did right here. So we will skip this treble right there. Okay, we're skipping over that whole treble. Coming over here to the second one, we will place a single crochet right there, chain 3, and we will finish off with a V-stitch. And we will finish off with the V-stitch into this space. So even though I marked that chain, that lets me know that that is the final chain of my turning chain that I did. It lets me know that's the end of my row. If it was a different color, it would let me know that that was the end of my previous red row. You know what I'm saying here? So you can use this marker any way you want. But what we want to do here is we want to put a V-stitch into this entire space. We don't have to go into that actual stitch. We want to go into this entire space and do a V-stitch, which is a double crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet, all into that big space. Okay, so there's a V-stitch right there. We chained 3, there's a single, there's chain 3, and then this was our beginning V-stitch. Let's bring in our chart and take a look real quick. So what we've done so far is we've done row 1, row 2, and this is row 3 coming back. Now you notice I haven't put my marker here on row 3, and I want to show you why right now. Just as over here where we worked the V-stitch into this big space, and you can see that on row 3 right here. I'm going to show you how to do this. You can see these two symbols right there, they actually don't point directly to a chain stitch or to the treble crochet. They work kind of in between them. That's your clue if you're just using the chart, that the stitch is supposed to be worked right there in between those two stitches. Okay, and as we look at the next row, you can see, okay, look, I'm going to chain 4 and I'm going to put a double crochet right here. Okay, and we know that that counts as, it's called a beginning V-stitch, right? We know that the chain 3 and the chain 1 and the double crochet is our beginning V-stitch. And then we will chain 3, and then we will put a treble into that single, chain 5, and put a treble into that single. See how those two stitches are pointing directly to that single crochet? That's a big clue for you that it's all those stitches are supposed to go into that stitch. Whereas when we continue on, then we have chain 3, we have a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and it's all pointing to that one chain right there, correct? Here's where you have a choice. You can actually put all of those stitches into that one chain, or you can go into that whole space just like we did over here and just put that V-stitch right there into that whole space. That's what I'm going to do, so that's what I want to do throughout the entire shawl pattern, but you decide what you want to do and just remain consistent with it. So now that we've completed row 3, I can come back here and I say, okay, do I want to put my stitch marker into that 4th chain? Do I just want to put it around those chains? What do I want to do? So what I could have done is I could do just like what I did before, go ahead and mark the 4th chain just so I know where it is. Once again, I could make that a different color. And then I know when I come back, okay, this is the end of my row. So into this big space right underneath where my chain, my stitch marker is, I will place my V-stitch. All of that right there, all of those red stitches into that big space. Okay, so let's move this out of the way. We're going to go ahead and do row 4. So let's do row 4. In this one, we will turn and we will begin with the chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I can go ahead and move my stitch marker up. So let's go ahead and undo this one. And I will move it up. And just like before, I'm just going to place it into the 4th chain just so that I am consistent with it. Do you have to use the stitch markers? No, but I want them to be there for you in order to help you maintain consistency. Once you chain 4, go ahead and do a double crochet into that stitch right there. So I've yarned over my hook, went into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. That's my beginning V-stitch. Now I carry on in pattern where I chain 3, 1, 2, 3. I can go on, I will skip this, I think that was a double crochet. I'm coming over here to this single crochet and I will place a treble, so I yarn over my hook twice, go into the single and work a treble. Now I will chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I will put another treble into that same single crochet. So let's go ahead and put all of those trebles into that same single crochet. Now the pattern says to go ahead and chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I will do a V-stitch over here into this, either this actual chain that I've marked or into the big space. And as I mentioned, I'm going to go into the big space. 1, because it's easier. 2, I think it's prettier. So I like to go into the big space, and I'm working the V-stitch. And if you need help with that V-stitch, or you need a reminder of what the V-stitch is, go ahead and take a look at the written instructions. Let me pull those over. And you can see here where it says special stitches, it will tell you beginning V-stitch, edging V-stitch, large V-stitch, single crochet 2 together, treble 2 together, and V-stitch. All of the special stitches are written right there if you're lost with what the wording is for the written instructions. If you're following along with the chart, it's simply just as easy as knowing, okay, I'm putting a treble, a chain 5, and a treble. You just have to know what the stitches are actually as represented by symbols on the chart. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And here we are. We have finished row 4 of this part of the instructions, and we're ready to move on to row 5. So let's go ahead and move on to row 5. We will turn our work and chain 4, 2, 3, 4, and do a double crochet into this first stitch right here. Okay, so that was a beginning V-stitch. Once again, I can move my marker up. Let's go ahead and move my marker up. And I can decide here if I want to put it into the space or if I want to put it into the chain. So I'm going to stay consistent. I'm going to place it into the chain just so we know where it is. Okay, so there's that. And I continue on. So the instructions for row 5 say to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We will single crochet in the large V-stitch. So this stitch right here that we created, the treble, chain 5, treble, that is the large V-stitch. So we are going to skip all of this, jump all the way over here and do a single crochet right here into the large V-stitch. Then we will chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we will place a double crochet into the second treble crochet of the large V-stitch, okay? So I put a single in the chain 5 space. You'll notice I did not work into a chain 5. I put it into the space. And now I will put a double crochet into this treble. Okay, this is important. I put a double into that treble. And now I will chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And I will finish off with a V-stitch all the way over here to the very edge. And I'm going to go into that space. So I will do a double, chain 1, and a double. Let's bring in my chart. You'll see here I am on row 5. And as I set this down, row 5 had me do the chain 4 and the double. So that was right here. I chained 3, I chained 3. I put a single crochet into that big chain 5 space, so that's right there. I chained 3, I chained 3. I put a double into my treble, double into my treble, chain 3, and then I finished with a V-stitch right there. Now what you're going to notice here is this edge right here. This is our increase edge, okay? So this edge over here, this is our increase edge. So this is where if you had these in different colors, that would be really handy because you could have this instant reminder of, oh my gosh, every time I'm over here, I will be working an increase, a series of increases, because this is my edge that's going to gradually get larger. This edge is going to stay nice and straight. And we know that even just looking at this, because these are all the same stitches, right? They're all the same stitches going along, just V-stitch, V-stitch, V-stitch. These are the large V-stitches because that's the body of our shawl is constructed of those large V-stitches. So the treble, the chain 5, and the treble, that's what the body of our shawl is, okay? It's when we get to the increase edge here that we have to change things up because we want our increases to happen at a really nice gradual pace. And in order to do that, that's why we have to do this double into that treble, and then do the chain 3 and then work our V-stitch. And you'll notice what it's doing here is by doing the double there, we are then able to begin building with a single, and then now we have a large V-stitch. So then when we come back around, we have a double into that treble. We're able to put a single into that one and then have a large V-stitch. So then all of a sudden we have this another line of V-stitches. Can you see how this is working? So on this row 11, we have a double, and then on row 12, we put a single into that double, and then on row 13, we now have a space to put a large V-stitch. So we're creating this really great series of increases along this edge. What I find really great about using charts is that I can look at this chart and see that that is what is happening. That's what's creating my increases. What I struggle with is when I read patterns, even though instinctively and because I'm a designer, I know how to read the pattern and I know how to understand how the increases are working, I find it hard to visualize how it works out. So when I'm able to look at a chart and understand, oh, look, there's my repeat. That's how I'm going to get my increases, and this is how it's going to work together. It really helps me be able to see the pattern as it's getting made a lot better than if I'm just reading it. And hopefully that's the case for you too. So what we will do here is, because I don't have another color marker, I am just going to make it to where we put a marker over here. This is going to be our increased edge, and I'm just going to make it to where there's 2 markers on there. Okay, so my 2 markers are going to signify that it is this edge of our work. It's this increased edge. Okay, so hopefully that will help you out a little bit more. You've worked up to row 13, and it's time to begin the 6th row repeat, which is really similar to what we've already been doing, but I want you to be able to keep track of the 6 rows you will be doing. So I'm going to show you a little tip for that. And I also want to go through these 6 rows one more time so you can see how they work out as compared to the chart. So let me go ahead and jump in and do that. You can see right here, I have finished off with my row 12, and I'm getting ready to begin my row 13 right here. I still have my double stitch marker in place over here to indicate that that's this side of my shawl, and my single stitch marker over here to indicate this side of my shawl. I'm also going to introduce one more stitch marker to play for the shawl. What this stitch marker is going to do is it's going to indicate the first row of the 6th row repeat, and it will be a way for you to be able to go back and count how many rows you've completed of the 6th row repeat. It's just another way for you to have checks and balances and to keep track of what row you're on. Do you have to use this stitch marker the way I'm getting ready to show you? Absolutely not, but I will recommend it because it is a great way to be able to keep track of where you are. So let's go ahead and jump in with row 13 of the chart. So I am going to continue on here, and you can see on the chart or the written instructions, we begin with the beginning V-stitch just like before. So I've chained 4. I will do a double crochet into that first double crochet. I will go ahead, I will place this marker just into that whole space, okay? So this one is the one I'm not going to remove except every 6th row. So that's going to represent my row 1 of my 6th row repeat. Now I can move this stitch marker up and place it right there to indicate that that's the end of my row. So this is still the stitch marker I will move up every row, but I'm going to leave this one in place. Again, it helps if you have these in different colors. I just happen to not have them in different colors. So now that I've completed my beginner V-stitch, I will carry on with the chain 3. I will put a single crochet into the chain 5 space of my large V-stitch, chain 3, put a large V-stitch into the next single crochet, so I skip all of this, come all the way over here to this single crochet, and put a treble, chain 5, and a treble, all into that same single crochet. We've been doing this all along, so this is nothing new. Now I will do chain 3, go to the next V-stitch, chain 5 of the V-stitch, okay, it's right there, and I will do a single crochet right there. Then I will chain 3, and I will put a large V-stitch into this single crochet space. So let's go ahead and do that. So there is the first treble, then I will chain 5, and I will put the second treble all into that space right there. Okay? Now I will go ahead and chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I will put a V-stitch into this last space. So there's a double, a chain 1, and a double. So I have just completed row 13. Nothing new there, right? It's stuff we've been doing all along. We haven't done anything big. But remember, on this edge where I have the double stitch markers, that's where we were going to go ahead and work our increases. And our increases are going to work out for this next row. If we look at our chart for row 14, as we work our beginning V-stitch right here, we will then place a double crochet into that first treble crochet right there, right? And so what that will do is that's building the base for our next set of large V-stitches. And we have to do that for 3 rows to complete our next V-stitch, large V-stitches in red. And we have to do it for 3 more rows to complete our large V-stitches in black. That's why it's a 6-row repeat. So let's move on to row 14. We will do a beginning V-stitch once again. So we chain 4 and then work a double crochet. And I'm going to remind you that you can chain 4 and turn, or turn and chain 4. It's totally up to you. I will go ahead and move up my double markers here. I do find them very helpful to let me know which edge I am on. They just happen to fall apart each time because one's just linked into the other. So it makes it a little bit trickier. But hey, you got to do what works, right? Okay, so there's my double stitch marker, and I carry on with row 14. So I chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And then this double crochet is not going to go into this double. It comes over here to this treble crochet, which is part of my large V-stitch. So I will put a double into the leg of that treble, not the leg, the double goes into the treble, which is part of the leg of the V-stitch, okay? And then we chain 3, 1, 2, 3. I will put a single crochet into that same chain 5, in that chain 5 space of the same V-stitch I just worked into the treble. So there's my single, chain 3. And now I carry on just like before. So when I come across and I see a single crochet, I will do my large V-stitch. So there's a treble right there, chain 5, and put a treble right here. So there's my large V-stitch, chain 3. Come to the next large V-stitch, do a single crochet into that chain 5 space, chain 3. Work a large V-stitch into the single crochet. Pretty easy, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then do a treble to finish off the large V-stitch, chain 3. And we finish off with a V-stitch here at the very end. Chain 1, and there we go. Okay, so as we move on to row 15, I will start off with my beginning V-stitch. So I chain 4 and then put my double crochet right here into that same space. So I have my beginning V-stitch. And remember, I'm not going to remove this marker. I'm going to keep that one in place because that lets me know that that was my first row of my 6-row repeat. But I will shift this one up. I will move this one up just to let me know where the end of my row is, just to keep it consistent because I like to have some consistency. But you can already see if I were right now, I could be like, oh, I'm doing my 6-row repeat, but which row am I on? I could count. Okay, so there's 13, 14, and 15. And I know that's 13 because I have it marked, right? Pretty easy. So for row 15, we will work our way back. So we will begin with the beginning V-stitch like we did, chain 3, come over here to the large V-stitches, and then work our single, chain 3, work a large V-stitch into the single over here, I'm not going slow on these. I feel like you should know them by now. So there's my large V-stitch, chain 3, come over here to the chain 5 space of the large V-stitch from the row below, do my single crochet, chain 3, work another large V-stitch into this single crochet, the next one over. So there's treble, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chains, and another treble, chain 3, oops, 1, 2, 3, and here's where we will work into that double crochet to once again create a new base for a new large V-stitch, okay? So here's the double crochet that we created on row 14. So we need to put a single crochet right there. So that way on the next row, we will place a large V-stitch right there. Because remember, we've been putting large V-stitches in the single crochets of the previous row. So now that we have a single crochet there, we chain 3. And we will end with a V-stitch right here at the very end. So here we are, okay? So we've completed 3 rows, but this next row is where we will actually complete our we will have a new large V-stitch popping up. And so I'll bring this in. You can see here was the double we created on 14. Here's the single we just created into that double on 15. So now that we're coming back on 16, we now have a new large V-stitch coming into play. See how that works? It's pretty cool. It's pretty genius. I mean, it just takes those 3 rows to create the first large V-stitch, but then we have to do the next 3 rows to create the black large V-stitch as you're looking at the chart. So I've chained 4 and I'm turning, and I will put my double right there just to represent my beginning V-stitch here. I keep wanting to call it shells. I don't know why. And I will move up my double marker. Did you notice I didn't drop that one this time? Yay! It's the little things, people. All right, so I will chain 3. And I get to now begin my very first large V-stitch right here into the single crochet that we built on 15, which we built on the double from 14, which we built through the treble crochet, which is a portion of the leg of the large V-stitch on 13. See how that works out? So those rows have made it so that now I have this increase ready to go. So this is the final bit, and we have a new large V-stitch ready to take action. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a treble in here. See how that works? Pretty cool. I'm going to finish this row, and then I really do believe that you can do the next 3 rows without me, because it's essentially just like what we've been doing all along, right? We've just created extra stitches when we needed to, when the pattern calls for it. And then after we've completed all of them, we then have, oops, I only did 3, 4, 5. After we've completed the designated new stitches, so it was the double and then the single on top of the double, then we get to create the new large V-stitch in place. And that's what expands the size of our shawl. It's really, really super easy. 2, 3, once you kind of get the rhythm of it. And oh my gosh, can I tell you how fast this starts to go with the treble crochets being as big as they are and really just taking up a lot of space. So this shawl will be completed in no time. And then the really cool part is if you're using the Red Heart Super Saver Ombre yarn, as the colors gradually shift from one to the next, you are going to be so excited to see how the shawl starts to look as the colors begin to gradually go from dark to light or light to dark. So it becomes really addictive. I just completed, let's see, row 16 right here. So that's row 16. And I have just gone all the way across. So now we have our extra large V-stitch right there. Whereas if we were to look at row 14, let's bring in the chart and see here. On row 14, when we were working our large V-stitches, see how we only had 2? And then that was when we created our first double crochet. So that way, when we got to row 16, we'd be able to get 3. You see how that works? Pretty cool, right? If we were to look at row 15, we have 2 large V-stitches. But by the time we get to row 19, even though it's not shown up here, we already know that whenever we see a single crochet, that next row we will put a large V-stitch into that single crochet, correct? So as you get up here, you will then just carry on across. So what will happen here, everybody, as you repeat these 6 rows and we get to row 19, right? Row 19 says to go back and repeat row 13, right? But row 13 only has this little bit. Well, what's going to happen here is this section out here, I'm going to use my colored pencil here. This section out here is really the bit that changes, right? Everything in here really just stays the same. It's just large V-stitches on top of single crochets on top of or into the chain 5 spaces, and then it goes so on and so forth. What happens with row 13 is row 13 has a large V-stitch that gets created on a single crochet. And this single crochet is just the same as if it were this single crochet. And when you get to that last single crochet, you would begin to build another large V-stitch. So as you're looking at your chart and it says to begin your repeat from 18, for row 19 you go back to 13, you would just work across row 13 just as you normally would, you know, going so on and so forth. And then when you get over here where you have a single crochet, you will create a large V-stitch. And you just continue on going back and forth just like so. Let me go ahead and color in. So all of this right here is what happens when we create, right? So all of this is what happens when we create our increases. So row 13, we have a large V-stitch working into a single. Row 14, we create an extra double. Row 15, we work across and we put a single into that double. Row 16, as we're coming back, we now have a place that we can put a new large V-stitch into that single. We continue across, we go to 17, we come across, and 17 is where we have to build again. So we would put a double into the leg of, or we would put a double into the treble, which the treble is a leg or a portion of this large V-stitch that we actually just created on 16. So now that we have this double crochet built here, when we move to 18 and we come back, we will put a single into that double. And then once again, on 19, when we come back, we will put a large V-stitch into that single. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. It's just repeating itself over and over and over. And every time you complete 3 rows, you are completing another brand new large V-stitch. For this pattern, you will repeat rows 13 through 18 until you get to row 54. Once you get to row 54, it is time to begin the decreases, and that's what I will show you in the next video. You can find a link to that video in the video description box right down there below, or you can go ahead and click the little I button right up there and it will take you to the video. If you have any questions concerning the increase portion of the shawl, please go ahead and leave a comment right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel, and I will do my best to answer it as well as I can. Go ahead and work your shawl pattern through 54 and then join me over on the part 2 video. Did you like this video? I hope you did. Why don't you go ahead and subscribe to the Marley Bird YouTube channel. There's a little subscribe button right down there, and next to it there's a little bell. If you click that bell, it'll make sure that it dings every time I post a new video. So you'll be up to date whenever there's a new video out there showing you how to be a better knitter or crocheter.